And welcome once again to Investor's Edge. I'm Gary Kaltbaum, your host. Hey, thanks for being with us today. Glad you're here, ladies and gentlemen. Happy that you are listening. It is Friday, the 7th of August, 2026. Hope you're having a good day. I'm having a good day. I did not have a good night. I'll explain in a second. In case you don't know, this is serious talk that affects you. We'll do the markets, the economy, your job, your industry. Your job, your industry. The Morlocks in D.C., the liars, the thieves, the corruption, the scams and shams that affects all of us. We'll do that too. If you do not get this radio show in your city, we'll post it at GaryK.com. We'll also post it on our X feed. If you don't follow us on X, you should. Just put our name in. If you'd like to email us, just be nice. As long as you don't like Hamas, we'll be respectful and nice back to you. Or if you're racist and all that crap. We'll also post it on the YouTube channel of BizTV. So I said to you out of the box, good day. I'm alive. Last night sucked. So let me explain to you how businesses should not be run. But, you know, I never put down airlines because they always get me there safe. And really, that's the most important part of the equation, right? But, so here's what's happening last night. We had weather in Florida. But there was no bad weather up in New York City. Get to the airport, and I noticed that my flight to LaGuardia, which is at 8 o'clock, I noticed an earlier flight to LaGuardia that was supposed to leave at 3:30 still hadn't left. So I'm wondering something's going on with LaGuardia, and I'm noticing all of a sudden my flight's getting delayed. And then I saw a flight from Kennedy that was on time, and the plane was minutes away to land. So I changed to Kennedy, rightfully so, and the plane landed and looked like it was going to be on time, but then something happened. The weather. They actually closed down the airport for like a half hour because of lightning and thunder, and that's okay, that's fine, wonderful, beautiful. So here you have a LaGuardia flight at 3:30 that still hadn't left. Mine at 7:59 changed, which I got rid of, to 11 o'clock. The JFK flight, an hour late. The plane was there. Fine and dandy. Go into the lounge. I'm not going to mention airlines if you don't mind. Go into the lounge, whatever. And we board. The 3 o'clock LaGuardia flight, they board also. And we're on the flight and everything, and I'm sitting around. I got to tell you, I was whooped. I never really fall asleep. I actually kind of like fell asleep while I have my ear things in, and I'm watching, I think, as usual, Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I hear, we hate to tell you the flight has been canceled. And I thought I was dreaming. But I woke up, and yeah, everybody's getting up, and our flight's canceled, and all the other flights are canceled, and all that. So I'm screwed. And everybody else is. But I can just go home. Other people needed to go home up in North, or weddings, bar mitzvahs, seeing your loved one, all that. And I was going to see my son's, one of them's birthday is this weekend. So that happens. But it was weird because other planes were leaving to Atlanta. And I tried to get on the Atlanta one. Because when I checked tomorrow's flights up to New York, there was nothing until the afternoon. And I'll get to the other part in a second. But the Atlantas was sold out. Boston was canceled. And it turns out in the Northeast corridor, Boston was sold out also. What happened is in New York, staffing. Believe it or not, we didn't get to fly up to New York because of lack of staffing, which pisses you off, but that's okay. But here's what really gets you. So I looked to fly out the next day, and I wasn't going to go in the afternoon. It would have defeated my purpose. There were a few flights, and guess what they were charging? $1,600, different airlines, to fly up to New York from Central Florida. Oh, and by the way, I believe Tampa also, because it's kind of close. So what they did was, because they knew people were desperate and they needed to get on flights the next day, we're going to gouge the living crap out of the passengers, $1,600 for a trip from Orlando, and I'm pretty sure Tampa, up to New York City. They hate us. That just proves they hate us. To do something like that is about as disgusting as can be. It's all about money instead of taking care of your clients, your passengers. $1,600 freaking bucks. And then the other part, and I didn't have to deal with it, the service center for one of the airlines only had 2 people there. And if I tell you there were 500 people in line, unbelievable. But of course, I did my service of the day. There was going to be a man and woman that were going to be arrested. They were having fits. And you can just tell the officers were not going to go for it. I talked them down. And I saved them a lot of trouble. Because I'm a nice guy. Anyway, went home, still in Central Florida, not going up because I was celebrating tonight and I was not going to be able to get there, but it just, what left a bad taste in the mouth, $1,600 for desperation and desperate passengers trying to get back home or to loved ones or to a wedding. Up yours. The airlines, and by the way, it was all the airlines too, matching each other at $1,600. Do you know I can fly to London in economy for like $400? $1,600. If I was able to sit down with the CEOs of the company, I would say 2 words: you suck. Think about that. And I have to tell you, there was some people crying because I guess it was an important trip for them to go see people, whatever. And again, the 3 o'clock flight, people got on board at 8:30 and then they're told they're canceled. That was a beauty. Anyway, that was my night. Do you feel sorry for me? Okay. By the way, I've had worse. I've had so much worse, it's not even funny. I've sat on tarmacs for 4 and 5 hours while people are crying and screaming at the stewards and stuff. Well, I just sit there, watch TV. Anyway, hope you are having a good day. My weekend, what am I going to do my week? I'm all alone by myself until tomorrow. I might just get up and go to SeaWorld or something. I haven't been to SeaWorld in a very long time. I may do that. By the way, if you've never been to SeaWorld, it really is a cool place here in Central Florida. I think they still may have one in San Diego. I have lots to cover. In particular, a name we've been talking about every day woke up out of its coma. And we're going to explain that. But also a lot of jello moving on the plate. And this week was the biggest earnings week. We had 12 pages. It goes down to 5 pages or 4 pages next week. And some of the moves on earnings, by the way, both up and down, have been, I rate them as a big wow. We got that. So listen up. But before we get into that, what have we warned all of you about when it comes to you working for others? We have told you, become indispensable. Become the most important person at your firm, the smartest, the hardest working, the noticed without trying to be noticed. Why? Because just in case. Just in case. Up next, we'll explain. This is the one and only Investor's Edge. And welcome once again to Investor's Edge. So, this is going to sound like I'm ripping on the president, but I'm really not. Because his job is to market. He was out today saying he's the greatest president ever, the greatest economy ever. He's out there talking about the golden age again. And as you know, he's full of crap. But every president going backwards, full of crap. All the politicians are full of crap because their job is to market themselves to you, whether they're full of crap or not. And most all of them will get on TV, and behind them it's raining, and they will tell you it's sunny. Seriously. And you know that, right? That's why I've never understood how people fall in love with politicians and are so happy with politicians. And they're all lying sacks. You know that, right? You should. Anyway. So he's out there today. The jobs number came in and it sucked. It was terrible. It was terrible. Last month, only 50,000 jobs were created, and the sycophants were saying how great it was. And I'm on TV saying, I use the word mediocre. Well, this one just plain old sucked. Not only because jobs were lost, but because there were revisions from the last months of like 100,000 jobs. And of course, the administration's out there trying to defend it. Oh, we lost government jobs, this, that, da, da, da. I got news for you. Everything matters. The job market is not good. And the job number went down because people are leaving the workforce. They're giving up. This is not good news. But I must tell you, I think it is more cultural than economics. And that's where I'm not saying, oh, it's Trump's fault, it's under Trump. I really think there has been a real change in corporate America on hiring. I think their meetings and the head honcho, top dog, big cheeses are in the meetings and are really looking at how many people do we need. And I don't know if it's artificial intelligence and the productivity that supposedly we're getting out. I don't know. But normally in the past, boy, this president don't know what he's doing. And as you know, I think he doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to tariffs. But I'm not so sure tariffs are killing the job market. Maybe they are. I don't know. But I really think there's been a cultural change out there. That, as far as the economy, it's one man's opinion. I've spoken to some people in industry, but it's a very small sample, and I'm getting some of that, and I see it in different industries. So back on my point is, make yourself indispensable, that you're the most important employee there, and act like you're an owner of the business. And you mean business, because I have to tell you, I think it's going to continue going forward. And again, I really do believe it's on the cultural side as far as corporate America right now. If that changes, we'll let you know, but that's what I'm getting at this juncture. And listen, I'm reading up on AI. I will the first to tell you, I don't understand 90% of it. I really don't. I know what I'm being told, but I don't understand 90% of it. but I'm trying. It's like coding. I don't know a frickin' thing about coding while I'm seeing 13-year-olds learn to code. So just letting you know, word to the wise, and this is not I think I have mentioned this 100 times. Whatever job you're doing, be the best there is at your firm. Simple as that. And if it's in the consulting arena, things like that, I think it could be a tough go. I really do. All right, let's move on, because I'm here in South Florida, where it's thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening to me. Oh, by the way, tonight I was supposed to be at the #1 omakase restaurant in New York City with my son, celebrating one of my son's birthday, and of course, canceled out. And the insanity of me, I checked on private jets. I've only flown private jets twice. One, people brought me on, and one, I won an auction to do it. And I don't really know how much it costs. And then I found out what it would cost to go to New York City, and I said, okay, I'm going to stay in Central Florida. Anyway, damn, it's a lot of money. Let's start with gold. On Wednesday, I told you very simply that I believed gold and silver had turned the corner, and let's see where it goes. That was based on the breaking out above the 50-day moving average for the first time since March. Well, I missed it this morning, but the GLD was up $8.80 today, up 2.25%. Silver moving the same, about 3%, and the gold miners GDX was up 7%, and the junior gold miners was up 7.5%. So gold and silver, to a lesser extent, in play. The trigger was Wednesday's action. Go look at a chart, put a 50-day moving average on there, and you will see what we are seeing. That's number one. Reason being, and listen carefully, I am pretty sure that our Treasury Secretary is on the warpath to crush the dollar. In case you don't know, and you can search this, when the dollar sinks, our multinationals do better, and typically it helps markets. That may sound, unless it crashes, and the dollar is topped out and is starting to break down here. Here comes gold, and I gather other commodities will join in. I noticed today copper almost at the highs. So we start with that. Next, listen carefully. The semiconductors. Tracing out, and we don't like technical terms, but every now and then we see something. This inverted head and shoulders pattern. Remember when we telling you about the topping out? Well, we're repeating head and shoulders inverted. Up next, we'll expound. This is the one only Investor's Edge. And welcome once again to Investor's Edge. $1,600 they were trying to charge people to go to New York City today. They really suck. You know, we use this term, this little phrase, they hate you. I use it mostly for politicians. But when companies do that, gouge you when you're your most desperate, they hate you. That's a great phrase to use. They hate you. Well, you know, when there's hurricanes and stuff like that, and they try to gouge you on hotel rooms when you need hotel rooms, or, you know, other things like water and stuff, they hate you. Anyway, let's move on. So the semiconductors had a very strong day today, but somewhat of a weird day, because SanDisk was down 44, Seagate was down 38, Western Digital 17, Micron was down 5, AMD was down 6, ARM was down 5. but the SOX was up 308. And I'm just letting you know, this inverted head and shoulders pattern, you turn it over, it's getting close. The first move would have to be on the semiconductor index, 12,525. The 50-day moving average, though, is at 12,705. A move above those areas increases the betterment of what we're seeing. So that is the semiconductors. And boy, so many have gone through, got smoked. And just remember, 2 Wednesdays ago, they were crumbling. But soon as they announced ceasefire, this and that, things turned. And then you get some decent reaction to earnings. My semiconductor screen, 90% green today. I mentioned a few that were down, but let's see, Microchip up 10. That was on earnings. Qualcomm up 7. That was not on earnings. Texas Instruments 7. ASML 36. KLAC and Lam Research and AMAT were up also. That's the semis. But what's the one stock we have talked about most recently? What's the stock we have said to you we really had no edge when it came public until it broke 150 and then 135? What's SpaceX? SpaceX. And now recently, coming into the middle of the week, they report earnings and the stock got hit badly on their earnings report. That was the same day where they said the lockup period for 900 million shares is at hand, meaning people can now sell. Well, on that news, the stock was up nicely yesterday. I take that, let's see, nicely. Hit a low of 105, closed at 115. Yeah, nicely. But nothing to do. Today, it was up $18 to 133, or 16%. Here's my thoughts. Number one, valuation hasn't changed. The one thing that did stand out, I mentioned it yesterday, Elon Musk says he expects to do $1 trillion in revenues by 2030, changing it from 2031, which is a heady prediction, considering they only do about $20 billion. He'd have to 50 times sales in 4 years. We'll see. But that's besides the point. What we're talking about is price action. Somebody upgraded the stock today, an analyst. Whatever. We've seen stock analysts upgrade something, stocks go down or up. This one was pretty damn strong, up $18 today to 133. What's interesting is what I told you, that I was really surprised that they could not hold that stock at $135. And the reason is because the investment bankers, the people that brought it public, look like idiots. Disaster, a massive failure. It hit a low of, well, yesterday's low was 105. I would suggest today remedy it. And let me tell you what I think. I think you can raise the potential low, notwithstanding if the market gets trashed. But if the market doesn't get trashed, I think the low now is raised to about 120, closed at 133. I think that would be your risk. But actually, I'm almost thinking 125, but we'll use 120. I think this stock has a chance here. I never say 100%. What I call an IPO, initial public offering bottom. That's what I think happened today. I think that 120 to 122 area, if it can get there, calmly, quietly, and not in a trash-like fashion, is a place to be looking at it. I cannot promise you it's going to get there. because it had some momentum today, and for the record, volume was up there. That was not Aunt Mary and Uncle Bob. I believe that was his institutions either doubling or tripling up or saying, all right, let's try some now. Valuations are still in the trees, and the market will have a lot to say. If we walk in next week and the market gets whacked, bets are off. But I'm just letting you know the absolute stance has changed on this. Defensive too. I think you pay a lot of attention to it right now. And remember, valuation is what the market decides something's going to be, not what I decide. We have been very right on valuation measures throughout the years on extremes, and this one is still an extreme. But was also an extreme when it came public at 135, opened at 150, and went to 226 within 2 days. We will keep you informed on it, and I must tell you, I'm going to pay close attention because Elon said, oh, we're going to do $1 trillion. Next, speaking of valuation, Palantir. I've never had a problem with their numbers. They've had good numbers all along, but the stock went from 207 to 106. Well, the latest earnings report shot the stock up off the lows, settled down for 2 days today, up $16, and broke above a mid-level range around 166, closed at 171 and change. And volume picked up. So Palantir, they're not worried about valuations. $400 billion market cap with $6 billion in revenues. Well, in a bear market, it's going to matter. Right now, they're in there. So just letting you know. And this is a name we have not had to think about at all. As we always say to you, earnings will change things. Like, may I state for the record, Post Holdings, the cereal company, down 13% on their earnings today. How about something called Sezzle? Credit card payment processing, down 34% today. By the way, that was off a high. Catching my drift? So while I talk to you about the good, I got to mention Dave. Remember Dave yesterday? Do you know Dave right before earnings was trading at $430 2 days ago? It closed down today at $318. It was down another $47 today after getting trashed yesterday. Again, making the point that earnings will turn good to bad, bad to good. For me, quite the happy in how things are setting up into next week for maybe better, especially technology, better. Seeing some better action in some names that have went by the wayside. Things like LITE back above the 50-day. Coherent back above. Certainly nothing really breaking out right now, but better. That's all we can do is look for better when markets are getting trashed or getting hit or what have you. Like Caterpillar. How about that one? Gapped up on earnings at not making this up. 4 days ago, gapped up at $938 on their earnings. Closed at $842 today. Go figure. Up next, this, that, and the other thing. Whatever else. This is the one and only Investor's Edge. Ba-da-da. Da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. As you know, I saw Rush last weekend, and wow. I am a Rush guy. I think I've seen him 16 times now. I'm not sure if it's 16 or 17. And of course, Neil Peart passed away. Nobody can replace him, but the young lady they brought in, dang, she got game. That was fun. By the way, I'm online to see flights to New York tonight, and there's only one now available. And yesterday, It was $1,600. It's $500 today, which is still ridiculously high. But I guess they went down to $500. Imagine if you paid $1,600 earlier today for it, and now if you went on, it's $500. How did that feel? I rarely invest in the airline industry because of just everything. And of course, as you know, one of my biggest wrongs on this show was when I said, there is no way in hell passengers are going to put up with paying for seats and luggage, for checked baggage. No way. Remember that? There's no way. Do you know how many billions these airlines are making now off of just that? Boy, did I get that wrong. Let's see. I'm going to put that in 1 second to see how many billions. How much money do U.S. airlines make with baggage and seat fees? I'm putting it up at U.S. airlines generate more than $7 billion annually from baggage fees alone. 5 major airlines combined pulled in over $12 billion from seat selection fees alone over a multi-year period. It doesn't say how much. $7 billion annually. I got to hand it to them. Whoever thought of that is a freaking genius, because I was the opposite of genius on that. And then again, with Apple, when they came out with the iPod, I said it was just another little iPhone. What's with that? I did say the iPhone would be something, though. I got to give myself some credit for something like that. Oh, and by the way, I think some airlines just raised the fees for bags because of gas prices. And you know what's going to happen if gas prices go down, right? They're not going to lower the fees. God bless them. And you know what? I also said with Disney, once they go over $100, nobody's going to want to go to Disney. Psh. That's another doofus thing on my part. Anyway, you can't get everything right. So, going into next week, much better technology action. Amazed by some of the reactions to earnings. Others, Caterpillar has dropped $100 since it gapped up. But just today, just to throw some names out to you, and we're not telling you to buy them or sell them or short them or cover them. Twilio, software name, up 25% today. And by the way, the numbers weren't so fantastic. I'm going to have to look at guidance. How about Atlassian, symbol team, up 35%. That had big numbers. How about ONTO, Semiconductor, Onto Innovation, 15%. One I've never heard of, Natera. It's a money-losing, molecular testing, whatever, and they only lose money. Up 21% today. Big breakout also. Airbnb, you know that one, right? They accelerated their earnings, up 17%. Big breakout today. I got to look at the monthly, see if this is an all-time high. No, it is not an all-time high. In fact, it hit 220 in 2021, closed at 178 today. We're just making the point, boy, there's some pretty big freaking moves off of earnings. And by the way, it's not just today, it's in recent days. And basically what we do all those, we know a couple of things. Number one, the reaction. And number two, typically the reaction's because something good is going on. And on this weekend, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to look at Airbnb and see, okay, we see that earnings, last 4 quarters went from only a +4 to a -23 to only a +8. Oh, look, 33. An acceleration of earnings. So we're going to do some double checking and see What are they doing right? Is it going to continue? Is it going to last? We do know if oil prices spike again, we know something like this is going to go down. And interesting enough, while Airbnb's up, Marriott got hit hard on their earnings. So we're going to check out Marriott hotels getting smoked, but Airbnb. Then I'm going to look and see Hilton got hit on their earnings. What's going on with the hotel? Oh, and Hyatt got hit also. So the three big hotel chains are getting hit, but Airbnb? By the way, go read the story about how they came up with Airbnb. It was just a simple thing. They wanted a place to stay, and they ended up staying at somebody's place, and they said, I think maybe, and boom. From nothing to, let's see, $12 billion in revenues. I had one Airbnb experience and it sucked, but that's not a rib on the company. You're going to get that every now and then. So going into next week, we're going to go through all these earnings. The earnings slow down next week, and then SpaceX. They were in there today. We call that an IPO bottom or an IPO low, turning the corner off the lows. 135 was the IPO. I as we said to you, I'm surprised it ever broke 135. Well, they're getting there quick. By the way, it's up a little in the aftermarket also on a Friday. With a 1.7 trillion market cap. That all said, have a great weekend. Drive carefully. When you get home, do like we do. Make sure you hug your family. Make sure you hug your children. They will feel better. You will feel better. I promise. Stay well. Be well. Have a good night. $1,600. Bye-bye.